Ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following anything in the world of chess in the last few days, or maybe in the last few months, but especially in the last few days, you've probably seen the name Hans Niemann. Obviously, there's this ongoing saga, scandal, drama, whatever you want to call it, where we still haven't gotten to the bottom of the issue. People are divided on both sides, Team Magnus, Team Hans, Team Truth, whatever it might be. But this got me thinking. Today is a rest day in the Singfield Cups. There's no games going on. Players are out having a good time, playing some tennis in the park. I've actually played Hans in a live broadcasted over the board game, and I'd like to show it with to you. Hans and I have actually played each other twice. He was super young both times. I mean, I guess I was kind of young too, but he's much younger than I am. We played once at the Marshall Chess Club, and he beat me in a game, but it was a rapid game. It was like a 30-minute game, and I don't have the score sheet anymore. Not just saying that because I lost. But this was a nice game. This was the third round of the 2016 Fall FIDE Open in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. And I remember this very fondly because I believe the hotel was near some place where there was absolutely no food. This was like, it's a very recurring theme in chess, is that they organize tournaments in cheap hotels on the sides of highways, and then you basically eat at Denny's, which is a 24-hour diner, 3 meals a day. So this was the third round. I'm rated 2394. This is 6 years ago, and I am 60 points higher rated 6 years ago. Since then, Hans has gained 420-ish rating points. No pun intended. Stay off the weed. D4 was my first move. I was a D4 fiend back then. And Hans played the Benoni. So I knew going into this game that he was going to play the Benoni. Because actually one of Hans's friends leaked it to me. Is it too soon to make that joke? Come on, it's a prep leak joke. Can I make a prep leak joke? I know I've been very serious. Like, can I make a prep leak joke? It's one of the theories about the whole Magnus Hans thing. Anyway, no, I just knew because he had been playing it recently and I had the database. So he was playing the Benoni, which is a very interesting opening. And it leads to this pawn structure where Black wants to play G6 and Bishop G7. And Black has a couple of ways of creating counterplay here. A6, B5 is one of them. The E file is one of them. And then Knight H5 and then the F pawn is another. And there are other move orders and the pieces sort of dance. It's a very fascinating opening. And I actually was going to hit Hans with something that I had never played before, which is something that I like to do, anticipating that the Benoni is a very dangerous thing. And if I come fully prepared to this game, 90-minute classical game, and he's not, I'm going to get the upper hand. So I played Knight C3, he played G6, and here I played a move which is by no means a sideline, but my follow-up move kind of took the game out of normal territory. So the Benoni is one of these things where you play something like E4, and then what you do is you just kind of play a couple of moves like maybe H3 to prevent the development of this bishop. Black castles. White plays something like Bishop D3, and now you see kind of the negation, is that a word, of that bishop, and Black tries to play B5, Rook E8, Knight H5, F5, and so on. But I played Bishop F4, which generally means H3 and E3. So this is the setup that generally follows the bishop on F4. But then, when Hans played A6, I played Knight D2. Now, there is a hidden idea behind Bishop F4. The hidden idea is that if Black plays Bishop G7, I am going to play Queen A4 check, taking advantage of the fact that he has not covered anything over here. And you say, Levy, I don't understand. What is the significance of this? Well, the sneaky thing about Bishop F4, Queen A4, which is why Hans played A6, preventing Queen A4, the sneaky thing is the fact that if he blocks, I go here, and now he has two hanging pawns. And if he tries to hang on to those two hanging pawns, it's very well established that this position is much better for White. And the reason is that Black doesn't get to move the knight to the traditional square, and B5 is no longer possible, and A6 to play B5 is definitely no longer possible because White gets to play A4. So I was hoping to get Hans into this preparation and maybe catch him off guard. There's also one more insane line that I would like to share with you. And that line is Knight H5, F5. I told you about this. Now, prior to Black landing here, nobody cares about your motorcycle, bro. Anyway, prior to black landing on the f4 square, I'm going to play bishop e2. And then here I have a very interesting desperado, which is sacrificing my bishop on the c5 square. And then I'm going to take on h5 in a moment and be better. So there's this pretty goofy variation here, all stemming from bishop g7, queen a4. So it's very important, actually, that black plays the correct move order. Back then, believe it or not, this was not super well known. 6 years ago, chess was probably about 20 years of theory behind. Does that make sense? No? How can that be? COVID, the pandemic, and specifically all the online games. Like, you, probably 95% of you, let me know in the comments, but probably like 95% of you haven't watched chess before 2020, right? Something like that. And many of you paved theory at the beginner and intermediate level. Yes, you're a part of history. Like, many openings at newbie level are more popular now, like the Scandinavian, the Karl Khan, than they ever were. The Vienna, the Traxler, you know, those kind of crazy lines. Shout out to yours truly who made that video. 2 million views, by the way. I think 2 million views. But at the high level, the same thing happened because a lot of people were playing Title Tuesday, Titled Arena, you know, like all these different events, and those games were making it into the database. So Hans played the right thing, and I played knight d2. Now, from a6 to knight d2, we go from like 100% of games. Knight d2 is probably played in about 5% of games. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to hit Hans with a savage opening idea. There's a couple of lines here. So first of all, if black plays b5, I'm going to play a4. Basically, I'm provoking a move out of my opponent. If Hans, after knight d2, just continues with bishop g7, I'm going to immediately get after this pawn, and there's actually no way for him to defend it. Unless he goes back to f8, which is nuts. So the move knight d2 is extremely annoying. I'm basically letting one of the two Benoni moves happen, and I have a response ready. If b5, I go a4, and then I jump into the middle, and it's not easy for him to move this knight. If he takes here, there's an incredible variation. Bishop takes d6, bishop d6, knight c4, where I hit both pieces. And if he plays something like this, I have knight d6 and queen d5 with a fork. Like, this was all in my prep. And I was like, oh, there's no way, you know, there's no way he's gonna remember all this and figure this out all over the board. Well, he's definitely not gonna remember it. Figure it out over the board is a whole nother thing, right? So I was like, oh, I got him. But then, you know, here, if bishop d6, he has this move, knight e3, trying to take the bishop, but make me damage my own structure. Anyway, the theory here is wild, okay? And I never got a chance to use this in the game. So I would take on d6 first, then queen e3. So the point is that knight d2 is a very venomous move. Now, I remember very clearly in the game that Hans thought for a while, and then he counter-surprised me. He played a move that I had never seen. But it became my prep again. So the move that Hans played became the prep that I knew going into the game. And I'll show you what I mean, because here Hans played b5. So before the game, I had prepared b5, a4, b4, knight e4, knight h5, and then bishop e3. Hans played knight h5 right away, and then b5, and so we got the same position. And here, there's a very natural-looking move that black can play, and that move is f5. Now, to the untrained eye, that move looks like it wins material. And I'm sure that Hans went into this anticipating my next move, but not quite remembering the theory because it was brand new at the time, or thinking that he had something. Well, here, I did not move my knight because then I would have gotten my bishop trapped, and this doesn't work because I just have two hanging knights. But f5, incredible move, danger levels. I was doing danger levels before danger levels was even a term. g4. This is a very nice idea. And the idea here is that if he takes my knight, I take his knight, and he doesn't really have an easy move. If he goes here, he's going to lose e4, have just a blown open side of the board here, and I'm much better. I just seize control of the entire board on this side. If he doesn't take on h5 and instead plays this, that's fine, but it's very difficult to play this not knowing if you're okay or not. Like, if black was informed, like, oh yeah, you're fine here, like, this was your prep, okay, maybe you play it, and actually the engine thinks it's 0.3, but it's very hard to play with black. The other move here is knight f6, just going back and looking for exchanges. If bishop g5, of course, pawn takes pawn. And in the game, Hans played knight g7. Now, this was a novelty at the time. Since then, this has happened 4 times or 3 times. Now, we were still in my prep. I played knight back to g3, giving up this pawn completely. Now, you might be asking, by the way, what happens if pawn takes pawn? Then white would have played h3, gambit-style move, just sacrificing the whole house on this side with bishop takes h3, but also knight c4. And I was in my prep for about 14, 15 moves back then, which was kind of normal. Nowadays, it's impossible to get anybody in your prep. And so in the game, I tried to play it like my notes, but I played it wrong. I was supposed to, when knight g7 happened, just take on f5. And, if he were to take back, then I can go back, or queen b3, protecting myself. But I played knight g3, sacrificing this pawn. And here, it's a very difficult position, because if black takes, I'm opening up the h-file, which is just very unpleasant for him, because look at his pieces. I mean, all his pawns are out, right? He's got a lot of weaknesses. Everything is on the back rank. But, it's hard to convince yourself that that position is okay. Now, he played knight d7. The problem is now I take, so I still open the h-file, right? This was my whole point. It doesn't matter what he does. I'm still going to open the h-file. He went to attack 2 of my pawns. Now, let me ask you a question. Which of these pawns is worth saving? I decided that it was worth saving neither. Now, I do actually have a defense here. I'm threatening something really disgusting. What I'm threatening here is that if he takes knight takes d5, I am going to play the absolutely... Can you find it? It's not queen e4 check. If queen e4 he blocks and everything is defended, I had a threat, queen c2, knight d5, rook takes h7. This was my idea, sacking the rook and getting queen g6. This was an incredible move. I sacked the rook, but I win 2 pawns. So I get the rook back and the 2 pawns. And the same if he takes on g4, I'm going to play rook h7. I set up this really savage idea, and I was super proud of it. And Hans played bishop takes g4 instead. But this leads to the next move, right? So I played queen c2, setting up tactics. Now, bishop g5, pinning the knight. Maybe I'm threatening to take. In fact, I am threatening to take. And I have a couple of ideas. Like, for instance, if this stepping out of the way of the center line, there's knight c4 and so on, right? I'm just going to apply more pressure, maybe queen c4, maybe f3, kicking out the bishop and this monster pawn chain. Basically, white is down a pawn, but black is clustered in the corner, sort of hiding, right? It's really difficult to play this position. So long term, I would have had good compensation for the material. But Hans missed my idea. When I went bishop g5, the idea was not just to pin the knight to the queen. Normally, when things like this happen, you anticipate, pressure, and then bishop e7. Hans didn't realize that I didn't go there to pin. I went there to take. And I remember him telling me after the game, he's like, oh yeah, I just forgot that you could take. Normally you don't take like this, but I have a fork. Sort of hidden, lost in all this. The pressure ultimately paid off. Now, the game is not quite over. Like, he still destroyed my entire queen side, and I still have to be precise. So I'm better, but I only have a knight for 2 pawns. So I decided to play e4 here with the idea to trade off his queen. I really wanted to get his queen away from my army, either with the bishop or like this. And what was very important is the fact that he could still castle, but it was dangerous. Like, if he went this way, I was taking on a6. If he went short, he was castling straight into that. This is what I thought he was going to do. I actually was anticipating short castles from him, but he moved his king, and then I did this, and here I played probably my most favorite move of the game, which was just moving my king up 1 square. It's actually the top engine move, which I was very happy about. It's a top engine move, because now I get my rook in, and if he, tries to just like keep his pieces around, I just go for this. So knight c4. And it didn't really matter. Like, if Hans had played rook f8, for example, I would have taken on h7. If he brought his other rook to f8, I probably would have, taken on a6. Like, everything was slowly falling apart. And he resigned here because he could go back or something, but then comes e5. I can also pick up an exchange. Actually, e5 is even better than this. And in 26 moves, Hans resigned and I won. Now, the game that we played that he beat me, I don't have, but that game was also, I think, very fast. I think he crushed me in that game. That was prior. This was my revenge game. Now, that tournament, actually, I don't remember how Hans did. I remember how I did. Going into my final round, I needed to beat a grandmaster, Bartolome Maciej from Poland, who now lives in Texas. And I had to beat him to get my IM norm, my third IM norm and my title. I drew him. So after this tournament, I was 2,400 with 2 IM norms. And then I got the IM title ultimately in 2018. I didn't play much chess in 2017. This game against Hans was a nice one. You know, 2016 was a crazy time. Like, back then, I could read a chess book, and the opening idea in the chess book would serve me for 8 months, 9 months. I would win 5 games, and then I would retire the idea. This knight d2 idea in this game was one of those ideas that I won a bunch of games online as well. Nowadays, everybody knows everything. So theory back then was awesome. You could prepare for a guy, you know, strong guy like Hans, who in 2016 was... he was 13. So I beat a 13-year-old Hans Niemann in 2016, right? It's crazy. Since then, he has picked up quite a few rating points. He has picked up exactly 415 of them according to the last rating list. Unofficially, like more, 425 or something. And I've lost 60. So this video was less about, you know, bragging about beating a super GM and more about just kind of a fun game that I remembered in my archives. We played more online. Obviously, he's beaten me far more than I've beaten him, but I remembered this game. I wanted to share it. A little walk down memory lane as we continue to follow this saga, this ongoing thing that has hit the chess world. And whoever you think is innocent or guilty, hopefully we receive some clarification soon from both sides. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, just go back in my videos. In the videos posted a day or two ago, biggest scandal in chess history. Hans Niemann says that he didn't cheat against Magnus Carlsen. It's a crazy thing going on right now in the chess world. Today is a rest day at the Sinkfield Cup, but tomorrow we resume the tournament, and I will be ready with recaps for all of you. Till then, get out of here.